بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد مرحبا وأهلا وسهلا ومرحبا بكم. Welcome to all of the viewers and Hadith disciples and YouTubers upon the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In this session, hopefully, we want to honor the request of my brother in Islam, my elder, and my teacher, my Ustad Abu Anas Abdul Bari, with regards to his students in College Park, Maryland at the Huda School. And Ustad Abdul Bari had requested for me to make a video addressing his students, if I'm not mistaken, his high school students, with regards to the topic of knowledge and the importance of knowledge and the virtue of knowledge, and perhaps it will be a means of encouragement and a means of inspiration bi'idhnillahi azza wa jalla. First and foremost, I would like to firstly congratulate the young men in the Huda school, congratulate them for having, alhamdulillah, a blessing of Allah azza wa jalla to have a very good teacher, a very sincere and honest, bi'idhnillah azza wa jalla, inshallah, la uzaki ala Allahi ahadan. We don't praise no one before or above Allah azza wa jalla. Very sincere and honest, hard-working teacher who has a lot of benefit and a lot of good to offer you. So make sure that you take advantage of that khair that Allah has given you, and that you respect your teacher, you venerate him, and you give him the utmost bi'idhnillah azza wa jalla dedication and ihsan. As for the topic of knowledge, then alhamdulillah, there are countless lectures. There are different khutbah, lectures, lessons given by me, myself, or others besides me with regards to knowledge and with regards to the different ins and outs and the aspects of knowledge, its virtue, its excellence, its superiority, the do's and the don'ts, the etiquettes, the proper ways of going about seeking and obtaining knowledge, okay, the faults and the harms of not acting upon knowledge, so on and so forth. Many of those videos and lectures, alhamdulillah, they've been posted on the channel. But what we want to talk about bi'idhnillah azza wa jal in this session is something similar that we spoke about before with regards to the shabab, the youth of Islam. The youth of Islam being the future of Islam, being the next page in the history of the Ummah al-Islamiyah. And one, you understand the responsibility that's been placed on your shoulders, and a task that's been put on your necks, then hopefully it will be a means of it becoming easier for you to fulfill that responsibility. And that responsibility is taking control of the Muslims and leading the Muslims and guiding the Muslims. That's a big responsibility as young men. Big responsibility. It's not something to be taken lightly. So therefore you need to seek help in Allah azza wa jalla to fulfill that responsibility. And know for sure that you're going to be asked by Allah the Mighty and the Majestic with regards to this responsibility. So how do you fulfill this? How do you carry out this noble task? Don't look at it as a burden, but look at it as something that is a means of Allah choosing you, Allah picking you and selecting you from thousands, from millions of His slaves, making you Muslim, giving you youth, giving you strength, giving you energy and free time, and bi'idhnillah azza wa jalla allowing you to tread that path of seeking knowledge. So we want to remind ourselves briefly, and I will remind you, my younger brothers in Al-Islam, is how special and how wonderful knowledge is. And when you understand how special and how wonderful a thing is, bi'idhnillah azza wa jalla, it will aid you in continuing to seek that thing and to search for that thing and to bear patience upon some of the hardships and some of the difficulties that you'll encounter in that path. So therefore, let's look at it this simple. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell His Prophet in the Quran? What does Allah tell the best of creation, the Sayyid Walid Adam, the most virtuous, the most excellent of all of the children and offspring of Adam alayhi salam? What did Allah say to him? What did He command him to ask for? What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala order His Prophet with, asking him for more what? if we ask many of the students in the Huda school and in other Islamic schools, let alone non-Islamic schools, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do? What do you want to be when you finish school? So on and so forth. Many would say, I want to be a doctor. Most would say they want to be doctors. I want to be an engineer. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be this. I want to be that. But how many of the young men and the young women would say, I want to be someone who's memorized the book of Allah. I want to be a person who treads and walks the footsteps of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, the best of creation. How do you tread those footsteps? And what were the footsteps that Allah Azza wa Jal commanded Muhammad to tread? That's what we want to talk about. And the answer to the question lies in the Quran, in which Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَقُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا. Allah tells us, and say, O my Lord, Qul, say Muhammad. This is a command. He orders the Prophet to say this. Not something that the Prophet can, no, he has to do it. وَقُلْ, say. Go tell the people, proclaim to the people, Rabbi zidni ilman, O my Lord. And it doesn't say Allah, but it says Rabbi, my Lord. And Allah is the Lord of all of creation. Allah is the Lord of the Muslim and the Kafir, the knowledgeable and the ignorant, the young and the old. Allah is the Lord of all. But this is a special lordship, a special connection, a special relationship, a special means of caretaking. Rabbi, say, my Lord, zidni ilman, increase me in knowledge. Give me more ilm. What's meant by that knowledge? Knowledge of the worldly life, knowledge of the secular sciences, knowledge of things that are beneficial and good and wholesome for the people's existence? No. What's meant by that knowledge is the knowledge that takes you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the knowledge that leads you to Jannah, the knowledge that gives you one thing and one thing only, which is the best things to be given, and that is what we call al-khashiyah. Al-khashiyah. And the term al-khashiyah in the Arabic language, sometimes it has a synonymous meaning with the word khawf, which can be rendered into the English language to mean fear or dread or awe. However, it has a deeper, richer meaning in the Arabic culture. And that is, the people of knowledge, they say, huwa al-khawf. It says it is the fear that is based upon ma'rifah, that's based upon knowledge. Is that you're afraid of something, you dread something, you're terrified from a thing that you know about, that you're learning of, that you're well aware of. So when you have this knowledge that you ask Allah for, and He allows you to embrace it, and to accept it, and to fulfill what you have to fulfill, and getting that knowledge, it leads you to having khashiyah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah tells us in another one of the beautiful verses in His glorious book, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاءِ, that it is only the learned slaves of Allah, the ulama, those who have knowledge, who have khashiyah of Allah. And it didn't say khawf of Allah, even though there are other verses that talk about the virtue of khawf, the virtue of having this khawf, fear of Allah Azza wa Jal. ذَلِكَ لِمَنْ خَافَ مَقَامِي وَخَافَ وَعِيدٍ. Allah says in Surah Ibrahim, that is for those who fear standing in front of me, and those who fear my threat. But in this verse, in Surah Allah Azza wa Jal, He tells in this verse, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاءِ. It is only those who have khashiyah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who those who have knowledge of Allah, who have khashiyah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The knowledge, the khashiyah, the fear that's based off of knowledge, ilm. So therefore, what does this ilm lead you to? It leads you to khashiyah. And what does khashiyah lead you to? Allah tells us, radiyallahu anhum wa radu an, that Allah is pleased with them. He's pleased with His slaves, and they are pleased with Him. The greatest reward, the greatest pleasure, the greatest bounty in Jannah, in this life and in thereafter, is for Allah to be pleased with you. Who is this pleasure for? Who does Allah become pleased with? And why and how? We say what? ذَلِكَ لِمَنْ خَشِيَ رَبَّهِ. He says that is, this rida, this good pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jalla, is for those who have khashiyah, those who have this fear and this awe of their Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we could talk for hours about the virtues of ilm. From the greatest of those virtues is that it leads a slave to having fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you fear Allah, and if you dread Allah, you will obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you obey Him, everything that you seek in this life and in the next, in the deen and in the dunya, bi'idhnillah azza wa jalla, you will have the ability to obtain according to that which is decreed for you. Now this verse in the Quran from Surah Taha, going back to the original verse, وَقُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا, say, "O my Lord, increase me in knowledge." Al-Bukhari rahimahullah, he put this in his Sahih, in his chapter of Kitab al-Ilm, the book of knowledge, okay, which is the 3rd chapter of Sahih al-Bukhari. Al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, باب فضل العلم وقول الله تعالى يرفع الله الذين آمنوا منكم والذين أوتوا العلم درجات والله بما تعملون خبير وقوله عز وجل ربي زدني علما. Al-Bukhari, he says, the book of knowledge. He says the first chapter, what's the first thing Bukhari spoke about? Defining knowledge, its types, that which is obligatory, that which is no. The first thing he said was what? Babu fadlil ilm, the excellence of knowledge. Why? To push you, to encourage you, to inspire you, to do what you have to do to get that knowledge. He says the chapter of the virtue and the excellence of ilm and the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will raise and He will exalt those who have been given knowledge, those who have believed, or those who have iman from among you. And Allah Azza wa Jal is all aware of that which you do. Allah tells us in this verse that those who have iman, which is based off of ilm, and their ilm leads to iman, and the iman leads to khashya, Allah will exalt them. He'll raise them. He'll elevate them. Darajat. How? Deen, dunya, school, this, that. Allah did not say. To leave it open, to leave it general. And also to magnify it. That Allah is going to raise you young men, bi'idhnillah azza wa jal, through this knowledge. The next verse, Al-Bukhari says, وَقَوْلِهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ, and the saying of Allah, the mighty and the majestic, and say, Rabbi zidni ilman, O my Lord, increase me in knowledge. Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala, the commentator, or from the commentators, not the only, but from the commentators, the most commonly known commentators on Sahih al-Bukhari, he says, قوله وقوله عز وجل ربي زدني علما واضح الدلالة في فضل العلم. He says this verse clearly proves and solidifies the excellence of knowledge. واضح الدلالة. It's nothing that's ambiguous, unclear, nothing that you have to think about. It's clear, common sense. The virtue and the excellence of ilm. Why? Why is this? How is this, one may ask? Ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, لأن الله تعالى لم يأمر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بطلب الازدياد من شيء إلا من العلم. Because Allah never commanded His Prophet to ask for anything more, something extra besides what? Ilm. He didn't say, ask Allah for more children, ask Allah for more wealth, ask Allah for more status, ask Allah for more physical strength, ask Allah for ilm, for an increase, for ziyada, for more knowledge. Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala, he then says, وَالْمُرَادُ بِالْعِلْمِ الْعِلْمُ الشَّرْعِي الذي يفيد معرفة ما يجب على المكلف من أمر دينه في عبادته ومعاملاته. And he says, what's meant by knowledge here is knowledge of the religion, knowledge of the sharia, not knowledge of the dunya, not just praising it or censuring it or saying there's no benefit in it and it's no good in you being a doctor or architect or a dentist. We're not saying that. But what's meant by knowledge in the kitab and the sunnah, when it's absolutely mentioned and depicted without no further restrictions, is not talking about nothing besides the kitab and the sunnah, knowledge of the deen. Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala, he then says, what's meant by the knowledge that is praised by Allah Azza wa Jalla is the knowledge that tells the slave, the mukallaf, the one who's of age and who has sanity, that which is obligatory upon him with regards to his religion, with regards to his acts of worship, and with regards to his mu'amalat, his transactions, how to buy, how to sell, what house can you live in, what house can't you live in, what car can you drive, what car cannot you drive, what woman you can marry, what woman you cannot marry, what is permissible to learn and study of secular knowledge. You can't do this unless you have a foundation of ilm. Ibn Hajar, he then says, وَالْعِلْمِ بِاللَّهِ وَصِفَاتِهِ, and having knowledge of Allah and the attributes and the characteristics of Allah, the mighty and the majestic. وَمَا يَجِبُ لَهُ مِنَ الْقِيَامِ بِأَمْرِهِ وَتَنْزِيهِهِ عَنِ النَّقَائِصِ. He says, and that which is binding upon you with regards to Allah's rights, and that which you must believe with regards to Allah's perfection, and how far He is removed from any defect or blemish or anything that doesn't suit His majesty. He then says, وَمَدَارُ ذَلِكَ عَلَى التَّفْسِيرِ وَالْحَدِيثِ وَالْفِقْهِ. He says, and the pillars and the tiers of knowledge, the main sources of getting this knowledge, he says 3 sources, 3 wells that you pour or you take and you drink from. He says the first is al-tafsir. Secondly is hadith. And thirdly is fiqh. So if you want to learn knowledge and study, these are the things that you need to focus on the most. He says tafsir of the Quran, hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and fiqh, the Islamic jurisprudence and the sciences of the halal and the haram and what to do with regards to your acts of worship and your transactions. So therefore, bi'idhnillah azza wa jalla, in brief, hopefully this be a means of, firstly, me reminding and inspiring myself and my brothers for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I wish and I pray to Allah the Mighty and Majestic that He will grant all of you the success in everything that you plan and intend to do of good. And that He will make you, bi'idhnillah azza wa jalla, I hope that He will make all of you to be of those who tread this path. But at least, bi'idhnillah azza wa jalla, 1 or 2 or 3 from among you that will learn and study and become a serious student of knowledge. And bi'idhnillah azza wa jalla, someone from the people of knowledge and from the ulama and from the a'imma, those who protect Allah's deen and teach Allah's deen and spread the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. This is what we hope for from Allah the Mighty and the Majestic. I pray that Allah Azza wa Jalla keep you safe, give you the success, increase you all in beneficial knowledge and righteous action. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu.